Hello and welcome back to the Greek Pyramid. Today is day 5 of the 12 videos of Christmas. So let's see what is in store for day 5. Right, so we're going to be taking a read of some 1-star Percy Jackson reviews. And we'll just have a bit of a reaction to what people seem to hate about Percy Jackson. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with The Lightning Thief and then just move through the series. So the first review we have is actually really recent, from only 2 weeks ago, from Megan, saying this book was so bad I'm going to go and dislike every review that claims it was good, or even sufficient. Just ugh. Writing sucked and the characters were generic and lifeless. Wow, I mean, to dislike every single review that thinks it's good is some real hatred for this book. The book just tries so hard to be a Harry Potter copycat. This is something that is sprinkled throughout all of the negative reviews, pretty much, and is one of the funniest or weirdest criticisms I find. As I remember when I was reading and enjoying the Harry Potter series, somebody I knew really was a big fan of Lord of the Rings. And do you know what they said about Harry Potter? They just said Harry Potter is a Lord of the Rings copycat. There's always going to be themes that are similar from one book series or one film series to another, particularly if you're aiming it towards a vaguely similar audience. Percy just fights monsters and almost dying, and that's it. By the way, in every chapter there are weird monsters and it gets repetitive and tiring. I mean, the weird monsters are... It's not like Rick Riordan made them up, per se. They came from myths. Conclusion, if you want to lose brain cells and rip out your hair out of abject frustration, then this is the book for you. Then we've got one from Aidan. Okay, let me say something. I hate this book. It is very unoriginal. It's just trying to copy off the success of great books like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit. This is exactly what I was saying. Depends what you're a fan of. Its humour is awful and bland. I was forced to read the series and watch the movies. Why do people like these books? Forced to read the books and watch the movies? By who? I keep seeing people in these reviews who are saying they were forced to watch it for some kind of class. I would have never had this book picked for me for some form of class throughout my schooling. But then also to watch the movies, I mean, I suppose that's quite frequent when teachers want you to try and, well, they want to have an easy lesson, really, and just make you watch a film and then you analyse that as well, as a kind of a different point of view. It's very lazy with its characters. They are just so generic and lifeless. If you like this book, then I'm okay. I'm happy with that people can like this book. Well, thank you for allowing us to have our own views, Aidan. That is very kind. Victor with a 1-star review. This book is awesome. Wow, and there are adventures. This book helped children to be creative and imaginative. I think they probably expected to put that in 5 stars, but it ended up accidentally in the 1-star. Ridwan says, this is so complicated. Teachers give us complicated books without even helping us this summer. I hate it. It's summer vacation. Why do we have to do work? This should not be called summer vacation. This feels like a greater review for the actual summer vacation, summer holidays, rather than the actual book, but if it's not for you, it's not for you. If we then move on to the Sea of Monsters, the first one we have is from Vanilla Frosting. We'll bypass some of this. It's basically them saying they were really excited for the book, blah blah blah. When I went home, I started to read my new book. Oh, it has Greek mythology, cool, and went on to read more. Once I grew tired of reading that, I awakened myself. Huh? Did it just say centaurs? That's from Pegs and Harry Potter. And did not read the first book. In the never read again bin it went. Then I started to read the second book. Wow, all these monsters I've seen before. I also put it in the bin. They're both just bad books, I'd say. I mean, the monsters are based off of something in both book series. I'm talking both Harry Potter or Percy Jackson or whatever other book series bases itself off of old myths. They're going to be similar, of course. It's how bizarre. But fair enough, you don't like him, you don't like him. This one's from Heidi. Okay, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. It's just too young for me. The writing is fun in some points, but overall I'm just frustrated reading this. This is another point that does get brought up in quite a lot of the reviews, is that the writing or reading level is too young for them. And at that point, there is an idea of like what the target market is. It's supposed to be for like middle school age. But of course you can read it at any age, it just depends on whether it's for you or not. And they do, and this review does go on to say, do I think this series is terrible? No, absolutely not. Do I think that someone younger than me or even my future children would like this? Yes. We then move on to the Titan's Curse. Nadine Adele gave a 1 star and said the third of the series, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. As I once mentioned in a previous book of Percy's, it is only a myth. Teens who read such books should be totally made aware of this and should not mix between reality and myth stories. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not sure many people are running around thinking it's actually really happening. That's giving teenagers not a huge amount of credit. Bursabel Y gave it 1 star and said, I really did not like it. It did not make sense, and the more I read it, it made me dizzy. That feels like more of a medical issue rather than the book series doing that to you, but dizzy, that's wow. If we then move into the Battle of the Labyrinth, we're really getting into the end zone of the series now. So people who have read this far are either people who really enjoyed the first couple and then found this one awful, or they are for some reason struggling their way through, which I've never really got with books, TV shows, films, whatever. If you don't enjoy it from the get-go, why do you keep on reading? If you don't like 2 of the books, stop reading. But, you know, that's what you want to do. So this one is from Morgie Alex, saying this book was a disaster from the get-go. With crumbling storylines and a tired theme, I would give it a thumbs down. I feel like this is where the storylines start to pinch together to more so in the Battle of the Labyrinth. This book, honestly, is just banking on the fact that the first one was good and people know the author's name. I couldn't imagine the next book to be anything other than the death of this sad, drawn-out, overly cheesy series. It is pretty cheesy in places, of course. Unfortunately for Morgie Alex, there is then multiple series afterwards. Unfortunately, not a huge amount of entertaining reviews for the Battle of the Labyrinth, so we'll move on to The Last Olympian. Obviously, this is the crescendo for everyone. So it's whether the payoff is there for some people or not. Taylor said, I never actually finished the book because the plot started to bore me. I highly enjoyed the first couple of the books in this series, but this one just didn't keep me wrapped in. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough to Taylor. Garma M said, I finally put my finger on what I don't like about this book. The characters. Percy annoys me to no end. The author makes too many pointless attempts at humour through him, and when I say too many, I mean in every paragraph. Plus, he's whiny. I don't like whiny heroes. I mean, Percy's been through quite a lot of stuff. I don't feel like he can complain at points, you know? He's literally deciding whether the world is going to end or continue to see another day. The only decent character was Chiron. He was by far the only mature one. Even the gods acted like little kids. I mean, that's fair. I don't really know what you would have wanted from the gods in place of that. They would have just become like weird monoliths of their domains. It would have been quite boring. And there were some holes too. The most annoying one was Percy's Achilles heel. There should be a rule in literature that there is a weak point mentioned. If there is a weak point mentioned, it should be just that, a weak point. He should have at least been stabbed once. Chekhov's gun, anyone? I mean, the problem with that is if he got stabbed once in his weak point, he dies. So basically he's just saying the story has to end for him. But I see what you mean. If you keep talking about the idea of a weak point and how the rest of him is invulnerable, then surely you have to do something with her in the long scheme. And the fact he almost gets stabbed quite a few times, or people are constantly trying to figure out where his weak point is. But we have Luke's, we stab Luke's, or Luke stab Luke's. Bathing in the river Styx wasn't anywhere near as dangerous as everyone kept implying, and at the end, it was left as an insignificant detail. I think, Percy almost got swept away into nothingness in there. It was only because he'd been coached a bit by Nico to figure out what he needed to do. So we're finishing off with a big review from Andromeda. When I started this book, I was very hopeful. Why? The title made me think that possibly all of the stupid gods would be demolished. My dreams were sadly dashed. Wow, I mean, this is a Luke and Chronos sympathizer, I suppose. I read this series to figure out what the hype was about, and it was a friend's favourite series. I thankfully began with extremely low expectations, and was a tiny bit pleasantly surprised. Okay. The good things about the series: lively characters, even when they drove me crazy, the humour, excitement, and an original premise. Fair enough, this is a well-structured review. They've given it some praise. Now let's take a look at the criticism. They've given us a 9-point list. I hate the gods. They're all essentially immortal and immoral, big-headed humans, yet they're glorified. as I said, I was hopeful that they would be wiped out. I feel like they do try and level some criticism at the gods in this series. Like, I feel like there were a few characters who try and say that they in some way agree with Luke's cause to an extent. They can understand where he's coming from, considering they feel discarded by their parents. Teen romance and drama, bleh. I mean, you're always going to get a bit of romance and drama. All the snark got annoying, okay? I could not stand that snob Annabeth. Sorry, people who love her. Oh yeah, you've got a lot of people in your back as soon as you say something like that. The main families were all broken. That was sad. I missed one of my top themes. Family. Yeah, that's fair. I can maybe get a bit of... You have Percy and his mum have quite a strong relationship between those two. But I know what you mean. There's no complete families. Maybe, to get really sickly, maybe it's the friends of Camp Half-Blood. Maybe that's his true family. Also, betrayal, one of my top most hated things. Not sure if you mean betrayal as in real life, you hate when there is betrayal, or you hate betrayal in a book series. There were just so many characters that I couldn't stand. Fair enough, if you didn't like the characters. The affairs and general immortality in that vein made me very unhappy. I'm sensitive to that stuff. Okay, fair enough. And then the last point is just etc. All that said, I do not recommend. You know what? Bit of praise, bit of criticism. Maybe Andromeda has some form of point in there. I mean, personally, I love them. But, you know, nothing is ever going to please everyone. I've got to say, this was a highly enjoyable video to find these reviews and to record. If you'd ever want to see more of these reviews, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time for another video. Goodbye.